All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Combatcast. Chevy, tell people what we got coming up before we get into today.
All right, April 8th, UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya 2. I'm very excited for that fight as it is coming up. The anticipation's building for me. I wasn't super excited about it before, but it is building. I think it's going to be a pretty good card overall, too. So looking forward to that one. April 15th. Another one I'm simultaneously looking forward to and don't want to watch at all. UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Allen. Huge fan of both guys. I don't want to see either one lose. And then April 22nd, UFC Fight Night Pavlovich versus Blades. We're going to learn about future contender for John Jones, I would assume.
I mean, yeah, you would think. I mean, we got Stipe waiting in the wings. A lot of it will be
which he has been for like 4 years or something. I'm not convinced he's fighting again until he gets in the octagon at this point.
We'll see. Okay, so you wonder. I think Stipe's got this. I think he wants. This is the fight he wants because it means something for his family. I mean, this is money. You know, this is.
He's like 50 years old.
Who?
Stipe. He's like 150 actually.
All right.
He's got those Francis Ngannou aging fists, you know?
Yeah.
And he's just busy like fighting fires and shit. I don't have a lot of faith in Stipe anymore.
We'll see what happens.
I would love for him to come and beat John Jones, but I would love for anyone to come beat John Jones. So
yeah, I think that Blades Pavlovich fight is probably the most interesting fight we got coming up in terms of actual contenders who really match up well against John in the heavyweight division.
Right, both of them differently in different ways, but both of them are good matchups for John. So, I mean, not good for John. Good matchups for people who want to see John Jones lose. So,
yeah, absolutely,
interesting matchups for sure. So,
absolutely,
yeah, we're looking forward to that one for sure. All right, let's talk about last week's UFC San Antonio card. We're just going to cruise through the main event. Definitely some wonky judging for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting judging on a few fights, but we'll get through it. Chidi and Njokuani versus Albert Duraev, right?
Yes.
You watched this one?
I watched this one. Duraev used a lot of wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a super close fight. At first, when I first watched it, I was shocked that it was a split. I thought Duraev had definitely done enough. But then I watched the fights again on Sunday, and I could kind of see how you would give Chidi some more points because he was very active off his back, throwing a lot of elbows. He's got those big, long limbs, and he was trying to get out, and his takedown defense was, it's tough against a guy like Duraev, but I could see how you'd give him some rounds, but I thought Duraev should have definitely got the win, which ultimately he did. So good on him. I don't know what's next for either guy. I don't suppose you have
no, I didn't do that this week. I could do that when we get to the main event though.
Okay, so move on to another wonky judging. Andrea Lee versus Macy Barber. What were your thoughts on this one?
I didn't think Barber won. I didn't think it was like. I thought there were a couple rounds that were like round 2 and 3 where they were close. I didn't think it was like that. I mean, I still wouldn't have thought Barber won, but like one judge, I think had round 1, like it had all 3 or something for Barber, and
that was the atrocity that she won 3 rounds. Yeah.
I don't know how you had that. So I mean, I'm glad Macy got a win in some ways because I am a fan of hers, but I think she kind of dodged a bullet here. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a big Macy fan for sure, but I didn't think she won that fight. I don't think it was a robbery. Like you said, it was close. I feel bad for Andrea Lee, though, because I did think that she won. I think Macy overlooked her wrestling a bit, as did I. I mean, I was very impressed with Andrea Lee's performance. That's the best I've ever seen her for sure. Her wrestling in particular was very good. So, more of that from her. She keeps improving like she has been. she could be dangerous in the division. Definitely gave Macy a wake-up call. So
let's see. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, because it definitely was a close call.
Yeah. Now move on to this was my fight of the night. Excuse me. I don't know who actually got it, but Nate Landwehr versus Austin Lingo. You saw this one, I assume.
Yeah, Nate, and he's great on the promo. Like it was something about Evil Knievel, Elvis Presley. I mean, and I'm handsome. And
he's handsome too. Yeah.
This guy's great. This guy, he's we said he's kind of a modern day cowboy. By the way, we can probably make a mention of too. Going to UFC Hall of Fame, absolutely deserving. But yeah, really cool. Glad to see him get a win, and I look forward to any fight card this guy's on.
Right. Not only can he rip a great promo, but his fighting style is great too. I don't know if you remember his last fight against David Onama.
Oh yeah,
but that was the one where he kept getting takedowns, and then he would just stand up because he didn't want he wants to be exciting. Like he was doing the same thing that Kevin Holland was doing against Wonderboy and stuff. So I mean,
yeah, he's crazy.
And like I said, he was gonna get bloodied up, which it was from a headbutt, to be fair. But he got bloodied up, and then he came back and finished Austin Lingo, who was a tough guy. So
yeah, he came to fight.
Yeah, so good on Nate. He's must-see TV at this point. I think he should be like headlining or like the feature of a prelim fight or the opening fight of a pay-per-view. I think, right in that spot to get people hooked into a card kind of thing. So
try to showcase this guy. Yeah,
right, for sure. He's exciting. We'll move on to Holly Holm versus Yana Santos. I didn't watch this either time I watched the card because I don't think I'm going to watch Holly Holm fights anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Holly got the win. She used her wrestling in a lot of ways. I should just tell you what you need to know about this. She said some comments about we need to not sexualize children for our platform, which I thought.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Let's not bang our kids or something.
I wasn't really sure where we go with that, but I also like that she said that because I have the platform, and then I think it got censored on one of the versions of the card. I'm like, okay, but whatever. I don't know what she's talking about, so maybe I'm just dumb. But just not bang our kids, right? Yeah, that was a fight. Holly's good.
That was a fight.
That's a fight. Holly's good. Like Holly is a good competitor. It's just she's not always the most exciting style.
She's never the most exciting style.
Yeah, unless she's catching you, Like
no one has made more of a UFC career off of one strike than Holly Holm. I mean, thank God she knocked out Betch Kohara. That was also a good strike, but that does not make up for the 10 straight 15-minute fights of just clinching on the cage. I can't handle it anymore. So I'm not watching her fights anymore. I don't want to be disrespectful, but she's just too boring for me.
Right. Yeah, her style is not very appeasing. Yeah, I agree.
Right. Do what you got to do to win for sure, but
yeah,
I'm not watching anymore. All right. Let's move on to the main event. Marlon Vera versus Cory Sandhagen.
Yeah, we thought this fight could go a lot of different ways. I think we thought Vera would come on stronger than, which I mean, you could argue that last round he really started to show up, but at the end, I thought Sandhagen. I mean, I knew he was good and I knew he could win, but I just thought he was so impressive and just looked like an all-around better fighter in terms of everywhere they were going. And also, he made the comment, I guess, and I think he was right. And I think he was being very honest that the type of style fighter that Vera is, who likes to take the time to figure you out, it's not very good when you're going up against Sandhagen, a guy who's going to bring it to you. And then once he's on, he's a good front runner. He's good at staying and doing what he has to do. So I thought stylistically, we found out that Sandhagen might be a tough matchup for Vera even. But overall, very impressive for Sandhagen. I thought, okay, because I thought about this call out. I even did a video about it. I thought for sure with Cejudo fighting Sterling, he would want to fight Sean O'Malley. And I thought, name, right? Yeah, the name, you got the momentum. This motherfucker picks Merab, like the toughest fight. And hats off to him. He's like, I would not feel right getting that title shot before Merab. I want to fight Merab. He actually even put over the fact that Merab and Sterling don't want to fight each other. When everybody else is giving him a hard time, he says, no, that's one of the classier things to do. So Sandhagen, I believe, is a man of his word. And I think this is the fight he wants. God bless him. I'm not saying he can't beat Merab because of how he can hit those flying knees or whatever. But, man, that's not a fight anybody wants to call it, I would think, except Sandhagen.
Right now, that's an absolutely terrible choice. Yeah, he might be the best matchup, but he's still going to lose. I love Cory, but he ain't beating Merab unless he lands some explosive thing that knocks Merab out. Right. But I tend to think Merab has a pretty good chin, and he'll be able to wrestle Cory down. But yeah, good on Cory. He's a savage for sure. I completely overlooked the fact that Marlon is a slow starter. Like, I just seem to have forgotten about that, because when you think about his fights, you think about,
exciting
him landing that kick on Cruz. He was losing that whole fight really until he kicked him. And Cory is basically Cruz 2.0. So and to that point, Cory just kept Marlon hypnotized basically the whole fight. He could not pull the trigger until the last 10 seconds of the last round. I don't know why guys wait until then, Marlon had to know he was losing that fight all the way. He should have put his foot on the gas the entire last round, at least, as far as I'm concerned. But good on Cory though. His footwork is enjoyable to watch. The way he switches stances and his feints that he throws, to get people to bite. He never is set in front of his opponent, and that makes him really hard to hit. And it makes it really hard for his opponents to know where his strikes are coming from. Plus, now he's improving his wrestling. He worked in those takedowns. He looks great. Like I said, I don't think he's going to beat Merab, but I am a big fan of him. I think he can beat a lot of guys in the division for sure. As far as what's next, I also thought that it should be Sean O'Malley for sure. Right. And that would be a good matchup, like an exciting fight. Stylistically, probably a good matchup for Cory. It's a fight I definitely want to see. Two, good strikers, rangy strikers in the division, but maybe the UFC can convince him to take that one. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not. But also, we should mention in this fight, somebody scored this was a split decision also. Yeah. Somebody scored it for Marlon Vera, who, in my opinion, didn't win one round of this fight.
Nope.
I thought he lost every single round. I don't think there were 10-8s or anything, but it should have been 50-45.
Yeah. Yeah, even Dana said that. He said this was arguably 50-45. He said, I don't know how you – he said, maybe you give him a round. He said, but I don't know how you had it where he won.
No.
Yeah.
Man. I don't know what these refs are looking at. I know a lot of people online have been talking about, they should have to go to a press conference afterwards and defend their judgments. And, I'm thinking that that's not such a bad idea, because we're getting
accountability.
So many bad decisions, and there's no repercussions for these judges. And, like you said, no accountability. We just move on to the next fight, and the next fighter gets screwed. And we're talking about a lot of money, half a paycheck for a lot of these guys and girls,
right?
If the decision gets made wrong. So we should be making sure it's right. So
yeah, agreed.
We briefly talked about it. We'll just go into a little bit more detail as we're wrapping up this UFC card. But as you were saying, Cowboy did find out the UFC is very good about surprising their fighters. That he is going into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he's going into the Hall of Fame. Second most wins, I think. Second most knockouts. He's in the top 2 or 3 for like every fight record. Just a savage. Just all around fan favorite for sure. He absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I saw a comment. I didn't actually get to read the thing, but it looked like it was Cowboy talking about enjoying retirement, talking about I got my hair done and I started taking steroids.
Oh yeah, he's talking about how he's on all these steroids. I mean, he's in the movies and whatnot. Yeah. He looks huge. So he says he understands why steroids are illegal because he feels phenomenal on them. So
yeah, I was gonna say he should be on this boxing card we're gonna talk about later.
yeah. All right, before we do the boxing card, let's talk about this PFL card. PFL 2023 season opener, Loughnane versus Marlon Moraes. That's a 9 p.m. main card start time. We're just going to go through the main card here quickly. Yep. We'll start off with Chris Wade versus Bubba Jenkins.
Jenkins is a great wrestler, a lot of collegiate championships, 19-6, 6 KOs, 4 subs, 9 decisions. He's been in Bellator as well. Chris Wade, 22-8, 2 KOs, 5 subs, 15 decisions. Fun fact about Chris Wade, I've been live to 2 of his fights, both in Boston. He is undefeated whenever I've watched him. Another fun thing you're going to find out here, when we go over UFC cards, it's always kind of notable the fighters that have more decisions. In PFL, there's a lot of people with a lot of decisions in most of their careers. And I know our friend Scott has talked about sometimes that the pacing of PFL isn't the best. I know he's talking about the show and the way the show is played out in particular. But I do wonder, this thought came to my mind, these guys are all fighting for $1 million. I do wonder if there's a little more of a cautious style sometimes.
Well, the thing about PFL is you get more points because, you score points throughout the season. You get more points for finishes.
Right.
So I think it's, I'm just going to be honest here. For the most part, the caliber of fighter is just lower than in the UFC or whatever. Yeah. So, but you're right. It's a possibility for sure. But I think you're just getting a little bit lower caliber fighter, and that's why you're getting a lot of decisions. But
Chris Wade, by the way, just so I did pick somebody. I'm going to pick Chris Wade by decision.
Yeah. So both of these guys are usually around at the end of these seasons or tournaments or whatever. In the featherweight division for sure. Both guys are well rounded, like you said. Bubba definitely favors wrestling. I would say Chris Wade favors striking. And they have some heat, some bad blood between them going into this fight. So excited about that too. A little extra for this one. I'm gonna go with Chris Wade, but I'm gonna say he gets a 3rd round TKO. All right, move into the next fight, Movlid, Khaybulaev. Yep. I look up how to say these names, and then once the show starts, I just forget once we start talking about Khaybulaev versus Ryoji Kudo.
Movlid is 19-0-1-1. He's got 1 draw and 1 no contest. Interesting to note that draw and no contest were right next to each other. That 1 no contest was actually a loss. I think Daniel Pinedo. And then it got overturned through a drug, and he's not lost since. So he's still technically undefeated. 19-0-1-1, 6 KO, 2 subs, 11 decisions. Kudo is 11-4, 7 KOs, 4 decisions, 1 draw. I got Movlid here. Decision. He's a former PFL championship too, I should say. I think 2021. Too.
Yeah, Khaybulaev has a win over Brennan Loughnane, which I remember that fight. I think Khaybulaev is the scariest guy that you've never heard of. I think he's gonna embarrass Ryoji. I think he gets a ground and pound TKO in round 2. All right, move on to former UFC fighter Krzysztof Jotko versus Will Fleury.
Fleury 11-3, 2 KOs, 3 subs, 6 decisions. Jotko is 24-6, 6 KOs, 1 sub, 17 decisions. He'll fit right in here with the PFL decisions.
Exactly. Yes, he will.
Tied with Gray Maynard for 2nd highest decision wins percentage-wise in UFC history. 10 decision wins, 11 wins, so 90%. Most split decision wins in UFC middleweight history. I think he's tied with a couple people, but I got Brad Tavares. So this is his PFL debut. I think he wins by decision.
Yeah, Will Fleury's on a good run right now, but his last few opponents aren't world beaters either. So I don't think he's ever faced anyone with a resume of Jotko, and Jotko's still got something left in the tank. So I think I'm going to agree with you. I bet he gets it done by decision. All right, and move on to the co-main event, Rob Wilkinson versus Thiago Santos. This is Santos's PFL debut as well.
Yeah, Santos, 22-11, 15 KOs, 1 sub, 6 decisions. He's tied for most knockouts victories in UFC middleweight history with Silva and Hall. Wilkinson 17-2, 9 KOs, 1 decision, 7 subs. Only 2 losses early in his career. That was when he was in the UFC. One of those losses was to Stylebender. So it's not like Wilkinson has a ton of losses. This guy is a really well-rounded fighter. Santos has fought better and more strength of schedule it's not even close because Santos has fought everybody, but Santos unfortunately I think is at the tail end of his career right now, and I like Wilkinson here. I think Wilkinson will get it done, and I think he'll finish him late, probably round 3.
Yeah, this is a showcase for Rob. I think big opportunity against an aging guy with a name. I assume he gets the finish in the first round because most of his finishes are in the first and second round. Super aggressive guy for sure. He hasn't been fighting the level of opponents of a Thiago Santos, but like I was saying, an aging Thiago Santos. But he needs to be careful about throwing caution to the wind because Santos still has power. Power's the last thing to go when you're aging, and he still has it for sure. So I'm still going to go with Wilkinson, but hopefully he doesn't get caught. First round, KO Wilkinson.
All right, let's get to this main event here.
All right, Brendan Loughnane versus Marlon Moraes. Marlon's the third UFC fighter that is on this main card here.
So it's funny. I realized when I was looking at Brendan here, I was like, I forgot to put down Marlon's resume in my notes here, his record. Well, I'm looking at it now. He's 23-11-1, and I know he's a former World Series of fighting, and he's got some wins. But what's interesting to note, well, let me give you Brendan's record first here. I think you know where I'm going with this. Yeah. Brendan is 26-4, 14 KOs, 1 submission, 11 decisions. He won this tournament before as well.
Last year, yep.
Last year, yeah. I think Brandon is capable of finishing people. I don't necessarily know I would call him like a knockout guy per se, but he can get it done anywhere.
He's a volume fighter like Max Holloway.
Yeah, but goddamn, I mean, I'm looking at Marlon here. He is on a 5-fight losing streak. One of the ones in the UFC has come back. All of these he was finished by TKO KO. I don't think this is a good sign. I don't wish anybody ill will, but man, I got to go. Marlon's going to get TKO'd again. I feel like this is telling here that, maybe volume, maybe round 2. I wouldn't be surprised if it's round 1, though, because maybe that chin's just not there anymore. But yeah, Loughnane there all day. Round 2, TKO.
I'm pretty confident in how this fight is going to go. So I think Brendan might get caught here and there. But by round 3, Marlon's going to be gassed because remember, Marlon gasses very easily, and there's no way to say this without being disrespectful, but he's a quitter. He's shown that in fights, in title fights in the UFC, he's a quitter. So Brendan's going to keep pressuring him, and I think Brendan's going to turn up that pressure and that volume and get a TKO finish in round 4. I think. Marlon's feeling pretty confident coming back to out of the UFC to a competition that he's been champion in before. I think that confidence is going to fade pretty fast getting in the ring with Brendan Loughnane.
And I will say this too for anyone who ever tunes in and watches this and like, hey, this guy's calling him a quitter. He's saying amongst elite level MMA athletes.
Absolutely.
Right. Not us.
No. Hell no. All the respect to Marlon Moraes. Yeah. I would never get in that cage. No.
It's a scary man. But yeah, it just says like against the elite when pushed at their when there's that this is gonna sound mean too, but it's a very perfect setting, perfect expression. Cardios make cowards of us all.
Right.
And he just definitely seems to fold when his cardio goes.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, he could surprise us. He is an excellent striker for sure, explosive. But, based on recent events, I'm going to go with Loughnane. Like I said, TKO round 4.
All right. Let's close.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Jorge Masvidal's Game Bred Boxing 4.
Yes.
We'll just go over some thoughts for these big name fights that we're going to
3 fights we want to talk about here.
Yeah.
All
so
I didn't pull up the MMA records. I did pull up Jones and Pettis' record,
okay.
but all right. So I know I don't normally let you lead, but Aldo Stevens, that's a fight we probably want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Boxing wise, I'll start off this. So to me, when I looked at this right away, I thought I kind of feel like I've seen this in the sense that
we have seen this fight.
And I know that's what I mean. Like, but I say like not necessarily a boxing, but we kind of have because that's their main styles. Neither one of them are professional boxers, although Aldo more so than Stevens been doing some judo boxing and stuff lately, right? And Aldo, when push came to shove with Stevens, was the better striker. Now I will say this:
Aldo finished him via body shot in
body shot
UFC.
Yeah, and kicks. And so this will be just hands.
But I mean, he finished him with a left hook to the liver.
It was okay.
That was what stopped him. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I gotta go Aldo O'Day here. No offense to Jeremy Stevens, but I just don't see Stevens hits hard, and it's not like you're taking on another top boxer in the world. But yeah, I gotta go with Aldo O'Day in this.
Yeah, same. I bet he finishes Jeremy again. I mean, Jeremy's only gotten older. And a little, just not what he was. I think Aldo's aged much better. So I'm going to go. I bet he gets a finish. I don't know how long these fights are. So if they're, if they're, 3-round boxing fights or something like that, maybe we get a decision. But if it's more than 5 rounds in boxing, I would assume that Aldo gets a finish.
I agree. And then Belfort and Souza, Ron Souza, Jacare Souza.
Another fight we've seen in MMA, by the way.
Yeah, but
this one's different.
This one is different because did Souza win previously?
I don't remember this one. This was very early on in my MMA watching. I think for sure
Souza might have fought Belfort when Belfort got off the gas.
So. Oh yeah. Totally different guy.
Right.
He's we all know that there's no testing for this, right?
Right.
We all know. Vitor is going to come in with traps. He's going to look like Overeem. They're going to be up past his ears.
So ironically, Souza did TKO Belfort in the fight that we're thinking about. And it is funny because a buddy of mine, Pete, friend of ours, said, I told him about this today, and he's like, "What is this card?" And he got kind of excited now, and I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Belfort's taking on Souza." He's like, "Alligator man." He's like, "Isn't he a grappler?" I'm like, "Yeah."
He has knockouts though.
That's the thing. When you look at his record, he's got knockouts. I didn't want to tune it in, but this is a guy. Unless he's juiced to the gills too, I don't know.
Oh,
but
I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is, but we've seen Belfort gassed up, striking. I know he doesn't fight as much anymore, but my money's on Belfort all day with this, just because, again, Belfort, I believe, is more of a dynamic striker, and I'm going to just assume that the playing field is at least even. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I'm going to assume the speed that we're going to see from Belfort, whatever, he's 40 years old or something like that, but on the juice, his speed is just going to be too much for Jacare, I think. I bet he probably gets a finish too. I'm slightly less likely than Aldo's finishes over Stevens, but I would assume that Vitor gets a finish as well.
Yeah, good for Masvidal putting this card together for these guys. Main event: Roy Jones Jr. versus Anthony Showtime Pettis. Interesting fight in the sense that I would expect Jones just to win because he's just one of the elite boxers. Granted, he hasn't boxed in a while, and Pettis is a dynamic MMA striker. He's even knocked out Wonder Boy, so you never really know with a guy like Showtime. And Jones Jr. is 54 years old, I believe, but he did have an exhibition with Mike Tyson not too long ago. Held his own.
It was terrible, though. It was.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, we're talking boxing here,
Yeah.
so I expect Jones to do enough to win. That being said, nothing personal against Roy Jones Jr. I grew up watching Roy Jones Jr. At the tail end of my boxing fandom before I eventually would get back into it. I remember him getting jobbed out of the Olympics when he should have won a gold medal. Horrendous. But at the end of the day, I'm an MMA guy now. I always kind of root for the MMA guys, and I like Showtime Pettis. So I think it'd be really cool for him to get a victory here. But I'm going to go Jones by decision. maybe finish.
Yeah. So this is an interesting matchup if you think about an old Roy Jones, which he is, in a prime Anthony Pettis, which we have not seen a prime Anthony Pettis. He's had a pretty steep drop off lately. I'm not saying, obviously he's never fought at this weight. I think it's like 190 or something like that.
It's all striking.
Yeah. This is the heaviest weight he's ever fought. And I've seen posts online that he feels he's never felt better. Might be on the sauce as well. Sure. So that could help him and bring him back towards his prime. And in that case, I would have to pick him because at 54 years old or whatever, I don't know how much sauce you'd have to be on to get anywhere near the level to beat Anthony Pettis in his prime. But this is the most interesting fight for sure. I think I would agree with you that I would pick Roy Jones if we were on a level playing field of sorts. But we know these guys are probably on juice. So I'm going to pick Pettis. I bet he knocks out an old man and we'll all be happy, but also sad. So I'm going to say he gets like round 4, not super early, but not late either. I'll say round 3 KO for Pettis.
Good on Masvidal putting his card together a week before he has a huge fight with Gilbert Burns.
I know. What a crazy guy.
Yeah. But all right, tell people we got coming up one more time.
All right, April 8th, UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya 2 for the middleweight belt. April 15th, UFC Fight Night, Holloway versus Allen, giant featherweight bout in the UFC. And then April 22nd, some heavyweights, UFC Fight Night, Pavlovich versus Blades.
All right, guys, enjoy the fights.